Alright, so today, in this week, basically, we're going to have two lectures. On lecture 7, today, right, we're going to look at chapter 7. So we're going to incorporate qualitative information here in our analysis. And attention, please. And on Friday, we're going to look at chapter 8. We're going to account for heteroscedasticity. So the problem of changing the variance in the error terms. Okay? So this week, we're going to look at two chapters, chapter 7 and chapter 8. Chapter 8. Okay, so now let's look at multiple regression analysis with qualitative information. Okay, so basically before, we look at the multiple regression, right? And the multiple regression here, about the form, say, y, right, equal to beta 0 plus beta 1, x1 plus dot dot plus beta k, right, xk, and plus error term for example. So this is something that we already looked at, right, in previous lecture. And attention please. And when we look at these multiple regressions here, we assume that these x1, x2, xk here, right, these are continuous numbers. So they can be wage, they can be education, they can be wage, they are education, they are quantitative numbers. Okay, so y and x here, in our previous example, these are quantitative numbers. So they are education, they are wage, they are stock return, for example, they are house price. House price. So now we're going to see how we can incorporate qualitative information. So qualitative information here, we have the form say gender. We may want to see whether there are any difference between the gender affecting wage. Okay, so assume before we got a question like wage. Right, and that's a function of beta 0, for example, and then plus, right, beta 1 education, for example, and plus an error term here. An error term here, right? An error term. So now we're going to see, okay, whether there are any difference between male and female, right, according to their wage. So whether gender got any effect on wage. And gender here, right, you got only two variables. It can be either male or female. It is from education here, right? So education is here, they're quantitative. And they're long range here. So quantitative here, education can be 1 year, 2 years, 20 years, whatever. So you don't have a lot of number. But then in terms of gender here, right, you see the effect of gender here on wage. And gender got only two values, whether they can be male or female always. This is qualitative information. Qualitative information, right? So remember before, right, when you look at data, and data you can have, right, data can be divided into quantitative data, okay, so it's from a number, and then you have here, thank you, qualitative data, so they can be like categorical data, so they're in different categories. It can be 1 for male, 0 for female, for example. It can be credit rating. So credit rating, it can rank from 1 to 5, for example. So they are credit rating, right? So they are category. These are category. Or they can be ordinal, for example. So you can have like, see whether there is difference between the wage in which city and in Hanoi. So you got the province or the city, for example, and the name here can be an ordinal name, so a name. A name, right? So before, when we look at the variables here, right? So they basically quantitative data. Quantitative data. So now we're going to incorporate qualitative data here in this formula here. So we're going to incorporate, for example, gender. Gender or race. Race, right? So race can be black, white, Asian, for example. A European country, for example, so race. It can be industry. So you want to see whether there are any difference among industry according to the wage. You hope, for example, you see that, okay, whether people working in banking industry can have a higher wage than people working in other industry. So if are there any difference, right, in the industry or in grading in grade, for example. that you can incorporate qualitative data here is to use dummy value. So you've got a term here, dummy, right? Dummy variable. So dummy variable is a variable that got the account in the 1 and 0 only. So the dummy variable here, right, got only two values, 0 and 1. 0 and 1. And by using the dummy variable here, right, we will be able to incorporate that qualitative here in the formula. So now, firstly, right, we're gonna incorporate, okay, the dummy variable here in the independent variable. Okay, so we're gonna incorporate here, right, the dummy variable here in the independent variable. And later, I'm going to show you, just introduce you how to get the dummy variables here in Y. So we can incorporate that qualitative data here, right, in either the independent variable or the dependent variable. So then we're going to look at an example, right? So assume with this example, I want to see whether there are any difference between male and female according to the wage. Or in another example, whether gender had any effect on wage. So you got gender, right? And gender got any effect on wage here. So we're gonna put here a variable in because that is dummy variable, and that's in female, for example. So our formula here is gonna become like this.